I'm one of the founding partners of the Search Atlas Group. Where we actually started our foray into digital marketing was as a traditional agency, which is actually called LinkGraph. Initially, we were a white label fulfillment provider for other specialized agencies that wanted to offer SEO as a channel. We ran into a lot of the pain points or growth bottlenecks that most modern agencies run into. So we started to build a technology suite that would empower our agency to be more efficient and leverage AI and automation to get more out of our employees, not replace our team.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today I am joined by Arman Advani, partner and head of partnerships at Search Atlas, where he's helping build AI-powered systems that automate modern SEO execution. I'm really excited about this one. Welcome to the show, Arman.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's awesome. We've spoken a few times before. Like I said to you before we came on, we don't tend to do a lot of sort of tools where we have people on podcasts and discuss the tools. We have done it occasionally, but I think what Search Atlas is doing is so exciting. Me and my business partner, Nick, the first time that we were introduced to the tool was, I think, your team did a presentation at Chiang Mai SEO. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and how Search Atlas came to be, and just give us a breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great starting point. So as you mentioned, my name's Arman. I'm one of the founding partners of the Search Atlas Group. Now, a lot of people may know us as Search Atlas, specifically as our software platform, but that's not really where we cut our teeth. Where we actually started our foray into digital marketing was as a traditional agency, which is actually called LinkGraph. So we started LinkGraph around 2017, and initially we were a white label fulfillment provider for other specialized agencies that wanted to offer SEO as a channel, but didn't want to incur the headache of fulfillment of all things SEO. In building that agency and taking it from a 2-person team to roughly about 65 employees at our peak, we were doing roughly 15 million ARR as an agency, which is pretty good. We ran into a lot of the pain points or growth bottlenecks that most modern agencies run into. Some of those issues were we were overly reliant on human capital. Like, I couldn't bring on 5 new clients without triggering a hiring motion for account managers, content writers, technical SEOs, et cetera. And the other issue was we were spending a lot of time switching between tools for very specialized purposes. We had a tool for backlinks, a tool for content, a tool for reporting, a tool for competitor research, and it was very fragmented and very expensive. So what Monik and I started to do, Monik is our CEO, CTO, and founder, we started to build a technology suite that would empower our agency to be more efficient. So how do we streamline cross-department collaboration, have a single source of truth, and leverage AI and automation to get more out of our employees, not replace our team, as is the common fallacy with anything AI, right? It's like, oh no, they're coming to take my job. And I can't make this more clear. Search Atlas is not meant to replace humans. It's meant to empower people so they can focus on the strategy and the client relationships and the sales, as opposed to the grunt work associated with managing a large portfolio of websites. So really, Search Atlas was built purely out of necessity, more so than anything. And we didn't even actually bring Search Atlas to market until around 2024. And that was the first time we kind of raised our hands as a standalone SaaS subscription and said, hey guys, you can sign up for it. So that's really how Search Atlas came into existence. It was born out of a necessity for our agency to bring in operational and executional efficiency into everything that we were doing.
Love it. Necessity is the mother of invention. So 2 questions. 1, did you get rid of the agency? Is Search Atlas the sole focus now? And 2, I'm going to need the breed and name of your wonderful looking cat.
No, absolutely. So we very much still have an agency. LinkGraph is still very much in business, but we did a strong pivot a few years ago. So shifting away from being a white label service provider to really shooting up and working with enterprise brands that are trying to solve the biggest, most complex problems in search. We crush local SEO, but it doesn't excite us, right? Being able to get a small business to rank in local maps is really not that hard these days, especially with the right tools at your disposal. What is hard is helping massive organizations that were built in the mid-90s try to digitally transform their entire tech stack and operations while simultaneously winning in the modern search landscape. So LinkGraph has kind of trimmed down its book of clients to focus on really big companies that are at the enterprise level, whether that's e-com, SaaS, or national franchises. In terms of my cat, I mean, I don't even know what breeds of cat exist anymore. Honestly, she was a street cat. We found
Okay.
her on the way coming home from the gym, rolled down the window, made a few cat noises, and she jumped right in the car. And I was like, okay, looks like
Oh,
we have a new cat. Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. What's the cat's name?
So it's a funny one. Actually, the cat's name is Bebito, which is little baby, but we were struggling to pick a name. So my girlfriend actually wrote 3 names on a piece of paper, crumpled them up, put them in front of the cat, and let the cat kind of pick its own name.
That's brilliant. And the cat shows you. I love that. That's great.
Exactly.
Okay, so we now have this tool that is it does so much, and me and Nick had the pleasure of sitting with you for like an hour. We've really dived into it. Some people think that you shouldn't try and do everything all at once, not be a jack of all trades. You guys do a lot inside of this tool. So what is the thinking behind that? I mean, everything looks incredible. So, I'm steering you towards an answer here, but like,
Yeah.
what's the thought behind that? And I mean, do you need like a degree in Search Atlas to be able to operate Search Atlas? Because there's just so much functionality.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question, and it's actually really, really on the nose. So when we first launched Search Atlas, we were very much an SEO automation platform because that was really where we cut our teeth as an agency, right? But what we've realized is as the marketing landscape shifts, people are looking for execution layers, not just reporting tools. They're looking for unified tech stacks, not fragmented, siloed operations. Now, when you actually do holistic marketing at scale, you actually need to appreciate that no channel should live in a silo, right? If you're spending a boatload of money on SEO with agency A and spending a boatload of money on PPC with agency B, and those 2 agencies don't talk to each other, you will inevitably lead to inefficiency in your marketing dollars. So what our goal is to be the agentic execution layer for all things digital marketing, right?
Mhm.
And as a function of that, we have to branch out into other areas of search, such as Google Ads, building funnels, building websites, posting on organic social, things like this. And what we do to ensure that we're able to essentially build the best product in class is bring in some of the best marketers in the world to join either our team, our product advisory boards, or to actually work with our product teams to refine and fine tune the various components that we're building. So I agree in the sense that most people think about tools as being hyper specialized and that's the only where they're good. But I've worked with so many tools that claim to be the best at, SEO, and they don't even cover something as basic as a backlink strategy, right? So what we're really noticing is that the entirety of the digital landscape when it comes to software as a service is going through a compression and a consolidation state. Platforms that only do reporting or auditing are falling off because people are looking for that next thing that is AI enablement execution. And there's no shortage of that, whether it's organic search, local search, paid search, et cetera. So our goal, our ambitious goal, is to be the agentic, holistic digital marketing execution layer of the internet, right? And
Mhm.
connecting all of the dots and unifying that into a cohesive strategy.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think having all of those individual elements being in a single place and then being able to, holistically see it from like a bird's eye view completely makes sense in like execution and strategy. I think you guys are running an ad in the minute where you talk about getting rid of an Ahrefs and SEMrush subscription. That might be you guys. I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those guys have gone like ridiculously expensive. They gatekeep a lot of the stuff that would seem to be seemingly worth having inside of a single use case within these tools. What you guys offer seems to be like exceptionally affordable. So how are you able to achieve that? And is this really a one-stop shop for somebody with the ability to execute their own strategy, a small business owner, maybe even just like a very small marketing team? Like, can this tool at its price level function in a way that is going to generate like huge amounts of success?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question as well. Like the way I see it, I don't like to directly speak poorly of any company out there, right? Like that's not my style. But there are platforms that are quite good at what they do. But again, it's a piece of everything that you need. right? And because what you do with that platform only represents one task, if they don't keep billing you for that task, they don't make money from that task, right? Whereas our platform, to your point, has this depth of coverage that we're able to provide value at all these different pieces of the user's marketing journey. And the more problems we're able to help them solve, the longer they stay on the platform, right? So we end up not having to nickel and dime them for mini quotas like keyword rank tracking or basic AI suggestions, because we know the long-term consumption of all of the things that represent Search Atlas is going to give us that LTV from a customer's perspective, right? Now, what's interesting that you asked is like, how does a small business kind of use this? Do they need a PhD in marketing to get value out of your platform? And, in full transparency, if that small business owner signed up for Search Atlas without knowing the basics of SEO a year ago, they would have had a hard time to really grasp the full potential of everything that the platform can do. Now, one of the ways we've tried to combat that and compress time to value is through bringing in Atlas Brain. So Atlas Brain is essentially our in-app agentic layer. So think about it like this. Search Atlas is a platform. There's over 100 individual tools inside of Search Atlas that you can use through the traditional UI layer, where you go, click the tool, read the description, run the task. That's complicated. It's time intensive, and it's easy to get lost or sidetracked, right? Because there's just so much that you can do. So what we now push people to is log into Search Atlas, connect your website, connect your first party data, and click Atlas Brain. This opens up essentially a chat window in your dashboard. You select your project, and instead of typing and saying, hey, I need this, because again, the small business owner doesn't know what they need, they go over to the playbook section and they see very clear descriptions. Optimize my on-page SEO, improve my map pack rankings and make my phone ring, right? Help me create content for X. And you simply click that button and it orchestrates a multi-stepped workflow that our agentic systems can execute for you. So essentially the idea is you don't need a PhD, you just need to be able to understand basic English, like what is this thing going to do and what is the expected benefit. The system runs 90% of the work and presents it to you for approval before it implements the change on your website or on your profiles. So that shift in switching from a UI first platform to a chat or agent first platform has really opened us up to get more clients who aren't lifelong SEOs. And I think we're just at the cusp of that, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting. Okay, let's dive into some actual sort of strategy then. Like you guys must see a lot. I think one of the things that I would possibly want to talk about towards the end, I may as well bring it up now, is like where you guys have built, like what's your moat for the tool? We've recently heard about Anthropic's delayed launch of Mythos, which is supposed to be this next level version of the LLM, which they're too scared to release to the public because, but they've let places like Apple use it. Apparently, it can hack, I don't know, every browser under the sun. It's not just going to be able to perform individual tasks, like it's going to be able to execute full agentic workflows. It sounds like it's getting pretty similar towards perhaps what you've built. And then if you see other tools like Replit has just released like these skills for SEO audits, albeit it doesn't seem like a load of nonsense, just my opinion.
Sure.
Where's the moat? I'm guessing the moat is it's not just you've built this cool stuff which can be understood and executed. It's the strategy behind that. Would you say that's true? And if so, can we dive into some strategy and why this is still working and why it's even still worth companies doing the local SEO or enterprise SEO when everybody is just searching on ChatGPT these days, if that's true?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, great question. And there's a few answers there, right? Because you need to have a deep moat, not a not a puddle someone can walk right over, right? So I do think that the strategy and the expertise piece is a huge part of it. So what is our kind of philosophy or our thesis there? We say we want to take a first principles approach to every channel that we touch. So let's use SEO as an example.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of conventional wisdom of what works in SEO and what doesn't work. There's a lot of water cooler talk. There's a lot of like, hey, I heard if you do this, it produces this, right? There's a lot of misinformation or even disinformation out there, as well as the fact that Google changes over time through algorithm updates. So what used to work 5 years ago may not work today, right? So our idea was like, take everything we thought we knew about this industry and throw it out the window. Let's go back to first principles and do rigorous testing using a concept that we call Petri dish SEO, where we take a large sample of websites in different industries, different verticals, different levels of maturity, different CMSs, locations, et cetera, and we freeze them. We say, we're not touching these sites. We're going to establish a baseline of their current performance, and then we're going to do single variate testing to try to quantify what is the impact of only adding schema markup to a website and nothing else? What is the impact of only building that one high quality backlink and nothing else? And trying to quantify that to figure out what is the thing that moves the needle the most effectively, right? And in doing these types of experiments, what we first realized is no one action is transformative in nature, right? SEO is, always has been, in my opinion, always will be the sum of all of the micro enhancements or optimizations that you make that when you stack them up over time produces this big transformative shift. Now, what we do with Search Atlas is we compress that timeline to do all of the things that you know you should do and that you didn't know you should do
Hmm.
to say it doesn't take 6 months to get results anymore. You can get those same results in 6 weeks instead, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a hack to say we've solved search. You press this one button, you do this one thing, and all of your problems go away. What it is, it's an execution platform to push all of the things, all of those micro edges, because that's really what SEO is about, especially in competitive niches. It's how can I do that one extra thing that my competitors aren't doing that sets me apart, right? Now, we just say do all of these things. So that's one piece of our moat is like that deep understanding of how the mechanisms work and how the variables are quantified. The other is just the sheer amount of data that we have. We have hundreds of thousands of unique websites connected with Search Console, analytics, Google Business Profiles, AdWords, Meta Ads. So we have a massive lens into first party data to be able to quantify these impacts, see trends, and adjust our backend systems as a function of what we're empirically seeing with the shifts in the market, right? The other side of it is the community and the education layer, right? Is you may have seen all of this buzz with like, hey, go get a Mac Mini, go install OpenClaw, and go take over the world tomorrow, right? And a lot of people rushed to their Apple store and they started buying those Mac Minis and they started setting up all these processes only to then realize that it is not as easy as that TikTok video made it sound to set up these systems the right way, to connect all the different APIs, to get all of the data and the connection layers to actually be able to let this thing add value. And I think that's really what a lot of people are going to see as they start exploring the capabilities of a lot of these models that are being released is they're incredibly powerful, but you have no idea how to set them up to add commercial value long-term sustainably in a way that is not going to break tomorrow, right? So the infrastructure, the setup, the rigorous testing, like those are the things, in my opinion, that really set it apart and make it a no-brainer. Is like, why would I try to reinvent 100+ agentic workflows that I'm not confident can scale when these guys have done it for me and their job is to proactively maintain the integrity of these systems?
That's a great answer, and one that I can really get behind. Like, we know some of my favorite SEOs, we know are just testing. They're in the field and they're testing, and they're just like, potentially one man band operations. We at Linkify last year or a couple of years ago, we did a joint single variable test with Kyle Roof, who is a big SEO tester. We took 5 pages in lorem ipsum, ranked them. We then sent a single no-follow link to the page that was in spot 3, and within 24 hours, it moved to spot 1. So these single variable tests, they can tell you what works and what doesn't work. And then you can then include that or not include it. But if you've got access to hundreds of thousands of sites with first-party data, you can all of a sudden see how powerful that becomes. So I love that.
That's absolutely right. And shout
Yeah.
out Kyle Roof, honestly. I saw his kind of studies on the rhinoplasty experiment that he did with the lorem ipsum text. Thought it was
Yeah.
fascinating. But yeah, that's exactly right. Like most SEOs on planet Earth do not have the luxury, either from a financial perspective, a time perspective, or just they don't have enough sites to sit there and do this level of testing ongoing at scale to really apply a scientific methodology to the industry that we're in. right? We do. Like our team is over 250 employees and it's constantly growing. We have 89 open jobs right now. So if you're looking for a job, reach out to us. Careers page is great. Within that, we have a division of Search Atlas that's literally called the Experiments Division. And their full-time job is to run these tests and help us prove or debunk what works and then publish research studies about this, right? So you can also access some of our research studies on Search Atlas. We've also created things like public, totally free GPTs that you can use to query every single Google patent that's ever been released, right? We call it Patent Brain. So you can actually go in there and we've trained a GPT to be able to you can ask it an answer from the source literature of Google's patents of what actually works and what doesn't, right? So that's the approach that we're taking. It's much more academic in nature than I think a lot of what the industry's been accustomed to.
That's awesome. Okay, look, Arman, whilst we've got you, we need to get into some granular stuff. So what is not working now? What is, because some people it's going to be perhaps not something that they want to dive in straight away to the tool. Maybe they want to just do a few things themselves. So I think this is a good time to talk about like what doesn't work in SEO, what does work in SEO, and as we are becoming an LLM search world, like, do we need to chunk all of our pre-existing SEO content so that it gets read by LLMs? Should we have a multi-strategy to rank in both? Like, what's the findings and the data showing?
Again, I think these are fantastic questions, Chris. As I mentioned, though, things do change over time. So what works in this moment in time, if you guys watch this podcast a year later, answer might be different, right?
That's fine. We'll get you on again in 12 months' time.
Beautiful. Beautiful. But yeah, I think one of the biggest fallacies that I run into is that people view AI search visibility and SEO as two separate, disparate channels that exist agnostic of each other. And that is definitely not the case, right? The channels borrow heavily from each other. And I think to kind of understand why that is, we have to first understand what is an LLM and how does it actually work, right? So, if you remember when ChatGPT first came out for public use, right? Like the first open source models that actual people were able to use, they were fantastic for looking up facts, right? Like when was the Civil War, who was the president at the time, et cetera. But the moment you started asking it about today, what is the weather today in Las Vegas, right? Who won the local election in this market? It had no idea because it was containerized to the base training data that was fed into it by the engineers who built that model, right? So first we have to understand what type of data goes into training an LLM. There's things like Wikipedia, there's digitized books, there's academic papers, there's all of these sources, some of which have intrinsic biases, right? So the engineers at OpenAI are a little bit more left-leaning, for example, than the engineers at Grok, right? They're a little bit more right-leaning. So you will notice certain biases that get fed into that training data. Fast forward to today, all of these models are able to use web search, right? So if a user asks a query to a large language model that was not a part of its base training data, then what does it do? It has to search the filtered web to figure out what is the internet saying about this topic, right? Now, again, there's biases here, and some of those are financial biases, and some of those are just limitations of the technology. So what are those biases? ChatGPT, OpenAI, was scraping Google search results without buying the data from Google directly, right? So you may have seen this kind of news, this in the news cycles in the SEO community, where Google stopped the num equals 100 in the search queries, and people thought they were doing that as a shot to rank tracking tools. Absolutely not. They were doing that as a shot to crawlers that were scraping data for AI training purposes without paying for that data, right? So that's actually why Google shut that piece of it down. So what do we know? We know that Gemini is a Google product, so it gets the luxury of crawling Google SERPs to look for information when conducting web search, right? ChatGPT actually partnered with Bing, so they can get their data from Bing search results as opposed to Google. Now, quick factoid, it's about 4-to-1. Google sees 4 times as many pages on the internet than Bing does. So Gemini does have an unfair advantage in just terms of data collection. A platform like Claude or Anthropic said, oh, both of those guys are too expensive. I'm going to go reach out to the guys over at the Brave search engine. I'm going to get my data from them, right? And then there's also publicly accessible things like Common Crawl that's an open source crawling infrastructure that everyone taps into. So essentially, once you recognize the fact, right, that if a question is asked and the answer is not contained in the base training data, the models have to search the web, Google, Bing, Brave, Common Crawl, and they have to coalesce sources that can give them a high confidence interval that this answer is true, right? So what are those sources? Sometimes those sources are your website. It's a first-party website that ranks well on page one for a given keyword. Oftentimes, it's going to be third-party resources, the review aggregators of the world, the review platforms of the world, the communities like Reddit and Quora, where quote unquote organic, unbiased conversations are happening, right? Now, you and I both know we can influence all of that through SEO, right? We can influence who ranks on page one. We can influence where you build your links, where you participate in these review style sites. So really, SEO is more alive than ever, if you ask me, but some of the priorities and the way you shape content and the types of places you get your backlinks from have shifted. But the core idea of content and backlinks is actually still the focal point of what works well in AI search. It's not necessarily about LLM.txt files and the specific type of schema. A lot of that stuff, again, we've debunked as like not really being the thing that makes the difference. It's about the content, the relevance to the query, and the sentiment provided from third-party references, aka high-quality backlink placements.
Okay. And so that backlink then is essentially acting as an algorithmic SEO benefit because it's a link, but often also a branded mention. So you're having that like
Correct. So it's a link wrapped in sentiment and context is really what it is, right? It's not just a link on a page that doesn't have any supporting annotation text around it. It has to be contextual, and it has to be from a publication or a web entity that each one of these disparate models view as authoritative, which again, you have biases there, right? Like OpenAI is going to instruct ChatGPT when looking at verifying sources, focus on these sources because we trust these sources. And Grok's going to say, no, don't listen to those guys. They're a bunch of lefty weirdos. Go look at these sources, right? So you still have biases, and our job is to understand which engine searches where and which sources matter to each engine, and then focus our link acquisition strategies to specifically target those various sources.
So Linkify being a tier one digital PR link building agency is putting us in good stead for a few years to come.
100%. You guys are, absolutely well positioned to be a source of authority for people that don't know how to do this themselves. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you know this as well as anybody, links used to just be a numbers game. It wasn't about quality. It wasn't about relevance. People would go on Fiverr or find a guy in Belarus, pay him like $100, get 1,000 links overnight, and all of a sudden they were organic number one. Google realized how poor that system was, right? And they started devaluing and de-indexing a lot of those links. But honestly, even if you look at the original dissertation paper from Larry Page and Sergey Brin, when they first theorized Google, you will see that links are a core mechanism of their ranking systems. And that is not going anywhere. What is going to change and what has always changed is the evaluation of what is a good link, what is a relevant link, what is a trustworthy link. And as people who build a lot of backlinks, you and I both, we need to understand those dynamics and adjust our strategy to move with that market and not be rigid in the way we used to think.
Really, really interesting. Do you think then that the LLMs will continue to use this like stepped layer of search where if it has to make a grounded search connect to the internet, one LLM might be using, Gemini will be using Google, OpenAI and ChatGPT, Bing. Will this always be the case, or will they be, because they have their own crawlers now, don't they? So will they get to a point where they have the same sort of capacity and infrastructure as Google to crawl, index, and understand the web? And if they do links then become irrelevant, or will they have a system in order to evaluate and the trustworthiness of a piece of content or a piece of information?
Yeah, I mean, some of this is speculative, right? I do see the shift towards agentic browser experiences as opposed to just searching or asking a question in a chat window and letting the chat go and scrape. We're seeing, like Atlas browser, right? From OpenAI, like they released something similar. Now, there's actually a few different points here. Like number one is a company like, let's say OpenAI, building in the direction to say our end goal is to index the entire internet to the degree that Google has, And, let me pause there for a moment because I don't think people understand just how miraculous it is what Google has pulled off with the way they've comprised the index of the internet. That is not a trivial task. That is not a inexpensive task. Companies like Bing, Microsoft, Bing, they can't even do what Google has done. And they've been working at this problem for 20, 30 years, right? So let's just put yourself in the seat of OpenAI's board. They have a finite budget of how they can allocate their R&D budget, right? Like what are they going to build? What are they going to work on? Is it a more sexy problem for them to create a catalog of all of the URLs on the internet? Or is it more attractive for them to build the next iteration of what ChatGPT can actually do, right? I would argue that it's the latter. So I do see a world where agentic browsers do become more popular, but brother, I mean, we still have people using Hotmail email accounts, right? Like we have people use Proton Mail and stuff like this. It's like the market is always slow to adopt to new technologies.
Mm.
So I think for the next, honestly, 5, even 10 years, we're going to see more people shift over to this type of searching, but it's going to be very slow and it's not going to happen overnight because people do not adopt this type of technology very quickly, especially the older crowds, right? So I do think that when the agentic browsers become more popular, they are absolutely going to still need a reinforcement of a claim, right? Because I can create a website today. I can say Arman Advani is the best SEO on planet Earth. And if ChatGPT agentic browser finds that, is it just going to trust that sentiment because I said that about myself? Or is it going to do its due diligence to look at, has this guy won any awards? Does he have any case studies? Are there any receipts proving the claims being made on this domain? And the only way to find those receipts in a digital landscape is through links, right? From sources that they view as credible.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. Anyone that doesn't agree, you can email arman@hotmail.com. I'm sure he'll get you a fast reply.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a really good, interesting conversation with my business partner recently because it can feel quite overwhelming, I think, with everything that's going on. Like you said, you can watch these TikTok videos of people that have bought 5 Mac Minis and they're running like a 25-man marketing team through OpenClaw, and you think, geez, I'm so far behind. I'm never going to be able to do this. And yet, I think actually we're so like, those of us that are in the industry are sort of a bit tunnel visioned in the fact that people still have Hotmail accounts. I was speaking to someone else the other day who said that their employee had given them a task to like look through a bunch of data because there may have been some like crossover and some duplication, and he gave them like a month to complete this task, and they just used ChatGPT and had it done accurately within like an hour. So I think the world is slow to move, but I think what's really interesting, to bring it back to Search Atlas, is that you guys have provided essentially what is an OpenClaw Mac Mini crazy multi-screen agentic system that can run your entire business. You've built it in a way that's safe, tested, and available to all at an affordable price. So I applaud you for that, and I think that's incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think there are levels to it. Like as a marketer going into Search Atlas, exactly what you said is correct. Like it's a contained platform. It has everything you need for your digital, and it has the in-app agentic systems that help you execute all of these things. But where we've also started building over the last quarter is the MCP tools layer. So what we recognize is that certain companies, certain agencies, certain enterprises need what's inside of Search Atlas, but also need to stitch together all of these other systems or components or workflows. And doing that through the context of an MCP layer is more efficient than doing it through the UI layer of Search Atlas, where that integration may not be readily available currently, right? So that is another area where we're directly enabling people who are very bullish on this idea of OpenClaw and, autonomous agents running. They still need data. They still need context windows. They still need to understand competitive landscapes. And tapping into the Search Atlas MCP tools is a great way to do that without having to learn the UI and figure out how to build a custom workflow within our app as opposed to within a Claude Code terminal, as an example.
Yeah, that's great. I love the fact that, like, I don't know, 12 months ago, or maybe, I'm not sure, around then, no one had ever heard of the word or the phrase MCP. It's like, it's so new. And now it's like, oh, they got an MCP. No. Oh, come on. It's nuts, isn't it?
It really is, man. It's a crazy time to be alive. Like, I really do think we're kind of at like the another gold rush, right? Kind of like
Mm.
when the internet first came out and the whole .com trend was going crazy. People made fortunes, and marketers who started to understand the new digital landscape and how to optimize and find these efficiencies, they rose to the top very quickly. This AI era that we're in effectively just hit the reset button on that and said, okay, the world has changed. Who's going to figure it out? Who's going to build the right tools and systems? And who's going to lead us into this new era of how we think the internet works, right? And that's where I think we have a bit of an advantage against some of the older incumbents that are maybe, not privately held. They have VC firms, they're publicly traded companies, they have boards that they have to get approval from before they can move this gargantuan platform in this direction. We don't have that bottleneck, right? Like we are bootstrapped. We built this thing ourselves. No one tells us what to do. So when we have an idea, when we have a pivot, we pivot and we make it the new thing because we have that agility to do massive shifts in a very small time. So that's really like where I see us going is really trying to take that market share and be synonymous not just with SEO but just with agentic digital marketing.
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree, and I totally agree with the whole gold rush situation. I think, and I still think we're nowhere near too late. If you're listening to this podcast, like you're still way ahead of the curve. There are so many possibilities. I mean, if you're a small business owner, or and you want to tap into this new era of search and optimization, there's tools out there like Search Atlas that you can go and use, and then there's things that you can do and build ourselves with AI, and it's changing fast, but like if we're just in it, then we can benefit from it and be ahead. So yeah.
That's exactly right. One of the things that we get asked a lot is like, dude, are you killing the agency space? And I was like, well, no, because no matter how easy you make something, there's still going to be businesses that want it done for them, that want a
Mm-hmm.
white glove service, that want results and they don't want to learn and they don't want to do, right? Because they're too busy running their business, which makes sense to me, right? Now, where I think we add a lot of value, because I talk to agencies all the time. My whole career, I've worked with agencies, I've consulted with agencies, I've partnered with agencies, and there's a broad spectrum just in the word agency, right? You have massive agencies with hundreds of team members and massive books of businesses. And then you have two guys in a room that just decided, hey, I want to start selling digital marketing and I'm going to call myself an agency, right? There's a pretty big spectrum there. Now, most of the, let's just call it the smaller side of that spectrum, in my meeting with them, genuinely, they want to do good work. They want to get their clients results. They don't want to just sell people a dream and then churn them within 3 months, right? They actually want to do good work, but they're better at sales than they are at execution. They don't know the ins and outs of all of the different channels and how to put them together to get that result. So they either sell and churn customers or they price themselves out of the market because they're staffing for all of these different experts, right? And what we're enabling these agencies to do is give them confidence that when they make that sale, the fulfillment piece of it is covered so they can actually get the result, not churn the customer and continue to grow with net new customers as opposed to replacing ones that have churned, right? And dude, seriously, like I could position Search Atlas as you come in here, you click this button and all your marketing problems go away. And there will still be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of businesses that says it's still too complicated. I want someone to do it for me. Right. And where we come in is like we work with the agency to say, this is how you use it. And this is how you lower your overhead. So your margins go up and the results go up and you're just being able to do more with less. Right. So I think in a lot of ways, we're actually helping agencies more than we're hurting them. Right. Absolutely. For sure, brother. Searchatlas.com. That's where you can sign up for Search Atlas. Free trials available in all plans. Check it out. If you're enterprise looking for help on the agency side, linkgraph.com. If you want to connect with me directly, Arman.Advani at searchatlas.com. Yeah, Arman at Search Atlas on Instagram, on Facebook, and probably LinkedIn as well. Absolutely. Great talking to you, Chris, and appreciate you having me on.